This is Pine Harbor for Windows PC, available through Steam right now as an early access game, and we're talking summer of 2024. Originally, my plan was to play this for about an hour with live commentary and then upload that video, but I don't have the kinks worked out of that workflow yet. And I also think, looking back, I was being a little too critical of an early access game. There are certainly things with this game I'd like to change, and I'm going to gripe about them here. But overall, this was a really good experience, and it feels like it's headed somewhere great. Once again, this is early access, which means it's definitely not complete, and things are going to be changing. So everything I say about this is probably already on a chalkboard somewhere, and developers are going to review and address it, I'm sure. That being said, I have plenty of thoughts on the game as it is right now. Things I would like to see fixed or changed in the long term. Once again, I like this game, and my gripes are pretty minor overall. First, this is a limited experience right now. It feels like the first section of a much longer horror game, and a skilled horror game player could probably wander their way through this in 2 to 3 hours. When I play a survival horror, I'm looking for a long experience. And I think that the game length should coincide with the cost of the game. If this ends up being a $20 game, I'm expecting 10 to 15 hours of gameplay at least. If it's a $60 game, I'm hoping for close to 20 plus hours. And I'm talking 20 plus hours as a newbie. As a survival horror game, I know people speedrun them when they get good at it. Like, I beat the original Resident Evil 2 in about 2 hours, but the first time through it probably took 20 or so of just you wandering around, dying, and just figuring things out. I would also hope for some sort of a solid replay value. Right now it doesn't have that. If the game offers no more than a point-to-point story, once you're done with it, there's nothing else to do. When I fall in love with the game world, I want to revisit it and see what else there is. So, having unlocks in the future would be great. For this game, I don't know what the roadmap is, but I find myself also wanting a horde mode where you can constantly collect resources and then just fight waves of enemies. That would be awesome, but it is also me dreaming. As we have now, it's a limited story, and we do have what exists in the story, a bunch of cliche story moments. These are moments that just feel painfully obvious, things that have been done before, and as a result I either don't believe them or I outright groan. It makes me not want to care about the story or people. The dialogue right now is really limited, and just like the story, and what we have doesn't feel like it's actually coming from people. I think this is a mix of the actors and the script as it is right now. This is something I would expect from a game in the 90s, when those games were mostly about gameplay, and they didn't really care too much about story or acting, so developers could get away with a ton of plot holes, barely piecing things together. I think we have more requirements these days. People, when they talk, they need to sound like real people, and the plots need to have at least basic sense to them and feel realistic enough. We fall apart in my criticism, I think, with some of these moments. The story starts with you in a bus, because your estranged father sent you a letter. You haven't seen or talked to him in 9 years. The bus drops you off in Pine Harbor so you can go see him. Okay, we've not really started the game at this stage, and my brain already has problems that I can't easily get around. It feels like they've strung together the most basic idea together just to get someone into a game, and as a result it feels unrealistic. Think about it. You're a grown man. You're an adult getting off a bus. You haven't taken 2 steps into the game, and these are my questions. 1. You don't have a car. I would venture to say most adults have a car, and they don't take buses. That's my frame of reference, of course. People do take buses, certainly, but by itself, I'd be okay with it, but there's a little other things that make it harder for me to believe all of this at once. You don't have any luggage. You don't have a suitcase. You don't have a backpack. How long were you expecting this trip to last? You have no mobile phone. Did you even try to call? We have a modern setting here, although I'm not exactly sure of the time frame. If this is before mobile phones existed, you gotta make sure you let me know for sure. You also haven't seen your father in 9 years. 9 years, and you suddenly invest in a bus ticket and show up because of a simple letter? 9 whole years? In perspective, you could have gone through an undergraduate, graduate, and a doctoral degree during this period of time. I don't think a letter, a simple, basic, nondescript, not even a full-page letter, would cause an adult male to probably leave their job and life and take a blind trip somewhere just because your father sent you a letter. Maybe if it was a shorter time frame, less than 9 years, I don't know. Maybe 2 years, maybe, I don't know, maybe I could believe it, but 9 years? Okay, well, you get off the bus, you take a few steps, and you get caught in a trap, and you find your father immediately. So the bus pretty much dropped you off at his doorstep. Your father is now babbling, and he sounds insane. Literally, he's talking to himself, like there are 2 or 3 people in the conversation. You don't say a thing about it. I live in the real world, I think. If one of my parents acted like this, pump the brakes, you would say something. You would say anything. But he doesn't here, so I don't know. Very strange. And it's just the opening scene. You've not really done anything. Your father, in this one moment, he's got a shotgun in his hands. He barely talks to you and he doesn't explain anything. And I hate this trope in video games. Something I would expect in the 90s, just not in a modern gamer story. Anytime someone says something to me along the lines of, "There's not enough time for me to talk to you," I groan when I hear that. This has been done in too many games, movies, and stories, and I just want a story to be better than a cliche moment. If there's any sort of interaction that takes more than 5 seconds, there is enough time to say something important. You can say a lot in a short period of time. I'm just spitballing at this moment. What could your father have said right there to at least set you up for what's going to happen next? Seems easy to me. "Son, I did not write to you. There was a toxic spill in town. It created monsters and they're coming right now. I need you to hide in the basement and I'll tell you more when I can." Done. That's it. That's all the subtext that I guess the game was trying to give me. Why not just say it? I think that's what a human being would say, and you're done. Because all this information too, it's really obvious. It's not like you're revealing anything. Whatever. Then you hide in the basement until morning, and then when that's over, you get out and your father's there, and he fills in some of the information at this point, I guess, and then you take a quick drive. Then you're in a car accident, and now your father disappears. Okay, your father's been here for 9 years in this town, it seems, and apparently fighting mutant creatures. He clearly knows what's going on. He never called the police. He never called the military, the news, nothing like that at all. What kind of person is this? And forget just this one human in this situation. No one else in the entire town ever noticed there was a crisis? No one ever made a call? No one came to look? No wellness checks on relatives? The police never showed up? Nothing? No one ever came looking for a friend or relative? Okay, what happened in this town, it doesn't make logical enough sense to me yet. This type of event, I think, would have quickly made the news. Or you need to give me more to make sure that this town is in fact isolated. We just drove in a bus with no problems, so there are no roadblocks, no military presence. We're not in another dimension. This was a toxic spill. I just think this part of the story needs some attention because there are too many holes. It's all fixable, of course. Maybe the timing of the events needs to be shorter. The spill could have just happened. Maybe your father wasn't so estranged. He probably could have just sent you a letter, and it would have made more sense for him to just say, "I need your help." Or honestly, eliminate the father altogether. Give us another reason for coming into town. Truthfully, I would have rather accidentally gotten dropped off in this small town because there were bus problems, as opposed to just coming here for your father. The father seems like a useless plot thread to me. But still pretty early in the development. What are you going to do? The game itself, what you can do, because now it's the stage after your father disappears where you're actually able to run around and do stuff. Finishing this game is relatively simple. Past this intro scene, after your car accident, your father's disappeared, and you're helped by this odd-looking woman with eyes that are kind of haunting to look at. There's something not human about the way she looks to me. It's bizarre, and I don't think it's supposed to be that way. You have to collect some bandages for her and some fuel, and then she's going to give you a mark on your map and direct you to basically a mine system, a sewer underground area. You escape this area, and then you kill a creature in the woods, and it's kind of over. It's fairly linear as it is right now, but you can wander around town and gather items and enjoy the scenery, I suppose. We also get a crafting system, which is nice, but you don't really need this crafting system. Not really. You can scrap metal and you can make window barriers for the house, but you don't really need the barriers. You don't need to be in the main house much at all. Making ammunition sounds good, but you really don't have a lot of guns. or even really need the ammunition much right now until the sewer area. You can probably run around and escape most things. You do need the bandages for the woman in the church, of course, but besides this, the crafting system doesn't seem to be much of a focus or a need right now. I also wish I could carry a bit more, so when I'm running around town, I can pick up more stuff and bring it back. What we do get is a lot of mutated enemies that I really like. Just these creatures running around in the fog, and they can come up and smash and kill you pretty fast if you're not careful. They look sufficiently distorted and gross. Some are these lumbering hulks, and there's also this armless one that spits goo on you. It's nice to see non-zombie monsters that can actually chase you down. I find them sufficiently creepy, and they can actually kill you in a few hits, so you gotta learn how you're gonna fight. You can also find them just sleeping on a park bench, or lying on the ground, which I think is awesome. Good call on this. It's unsettling to see one of these things just sitting there asleep on a bench. Your left button is attack, and your right button is defense. I seem to do best with this if I try to incorporate a block after I take maybe 2 swings. I think you need to work on your hand-to-hand combat early on, because you're not going to have a lot of ammo to mess with. And if you do play this game, definitely work on that first. It'll be beneficial to you in the long run for sure. Like I said, weapons are not plentiful. You get a club early on, and you're going to use it to strike and block. You do get a pistol, but you don't have much ammunition. You get it at the starting house. The weird thing is that if there were more ammunition kicking around, it wouldn't be enough, and you would still have a ton of work to do. I'm feeling they could multiply the amount of available ammunition significantly, and this would still be a chore. I also think more ammunition would really make this more fun to play, because there's plenty to shoot at. I find there are some pretty good scares here, just with the creatures as they race around. Just them hunting you down is creepy. I don't care if it's them coming to you in the dark or in the middle of the day. It's creepy. You think you're just fine, and then all of a sudden you're prey and you're dead. It's especially tough early on when you first start and you don't have ammunition, or you don't know how to fight, or you don't even realize you have a flashlight. Yeah, I don't recall them telling me in the game that I had a flashlight. If they did, I didn't hear it early on, and it would have really helped me out until I found it. It gets pretty dark at night. I also think time is a problem right now. There's a really short night and day cycle that really should be longer. Things are certainly rougher at night, as you would imagine, but it seems to creep up way too fast, and it's plenty dangerous during the day. In the night, it's really nasty. It switches from day to night too fast. I wish it took longer. The graphics, they look fantastic. I mean, this is a great horror feel with all the fog, the forests, and the town is small but interesting, I suppose. Even considering almost all the buildings are locked and you can't actually go inside and loot them. I really wish you could open the doors, go inside and look around. That would be awesome. And the creatures look great. They're awesome when they're running around, and their movements are really creepy out of the corner of your eye. If you think you see something and you turn and you see something running, it's pretty crazy. I also wish there was a little bit more with your ability to move around. I don't like being limited into where I can go or how I can get there. You have a duck, but you can't jump, which means you can't get over a small fence, and you have to walk around it. I would honestly sacrifice graphic fidelity if it gave me the ability to jump over an obstacle. But this is an early release. They're working on it, and with more content and maybe some story tweaks, I think this could be really awesome. Right now, we got a good-looking demo with a ton of potential. I'm definitely glad I bought this. Certainly. But I'm now hungry for more, and I'm really curious to see where they're going to take this. Overall, I guess if I got one wish out of this, the one thing I would suggest they change: more ammunition. The enemies are unlimited, it seems, so multiplying ammunition would make me just want to hang out in the world longer to shoot stuff. Seriously, if you multiplied the ammunition by 10, it would still get used, and this would still be tough. Well, that's all I have today for Pine Harbor. It's pretty solid, it's good looking, it's an early access game with lots of potential, and I'm really looking forward to see where it's going to go. And thank you for stopping by to take a look with me. Hope to catch you on another one.